Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. An influx of undocumented immigrant children being relocated to Arizona. We'll talk to an attorney from an organization providing free legal services to men, women, and children detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And in Sounds of Cultura, SOC, hear the sounds of Latin jazz from a musician blending Caribbean rhythms in the Southwest. Plus, we'll talk about what has happened since the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, started 2 years ago. All this coming up straight ahead on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thank you for joining us. This month, busloads of immigrant children caught crossing the border illegally in Texas were being dropped off in Nogales. Also, this happened the same week as the release of hundreds of undocumented families at bus stations in Phoenix and Tucson. Joining me to talk about this is Gladys Molina, Managing Attorney for the Florence Project's Children Program. This organization provides free legal services to men, women, and children detained in Arizona for immigration removal proceedings. Gladys, welcome to Horizonte.
Thank you.
This is the second week in a row we've covered this topic because it's gotten a lot of attention. Some suggestion that the Obama administration is punishing Arizona in some way. I think we dispelled that myth last week. But the number of children continues to grow. Tell us what the current situation is in connection with Nogales and what's going on there.
Yeah, so what we understand so far is that there is a large number of children coming into the United States, and a lot of those kids are having to sit in Border Patrol stations in South Texas and in Arizona because there are no beds to transfer them to the Department of Health and Human Services, namely the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is where they're supposed to go. And in other words, when CBP processes them, after 3 days, and no more than 3 days, the kids are supposed to be transferred.
So there's some kind of legal restriction on how long CBP can have these kids in their custody.
Correct.
And that's 3 days.
Correct.
And so they have to move them, and is that part of the reason why they're moving to Arizona for the processing that would then allow them to go to these other agencies?
So in order to meet that requirement, CBP put together a plan. As you know, the president on June 2nd said that FEMA should coordinate this, but they put together a plan to have this mega CBP station in Nogales open up so that they can help process the kids and do medical screenings in order to be able to take them to emergency reception centers that are essentially being contracted right now with the Department of Defense in Oklahoma and California and in Texas.
So what all is involved in the processing that goes on? The kids arrive in Nogales, and I understand it's about 300 a day right now?
About 300 kids a day are coming into Nogales.
So they go there, they go to this processing center. It's what I heard a reference on the radio. It's a converted Costco or something, or the size of a big warehouse store.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the facility used to be or...
So they're there, and in what sense are they processed? What happens to them?
So CBP conducts interviews to ask them about who they are, where they come from, why did they come, are they afraid to return, and they do paperwork. So it's, in a way, interrogations of the children about their immigration history and why they're in the United States and who they're here with or how they came. And then from there, they do medical screenings so that they can make sure that they don't have like tuberculosis or other diseases. And then they ship them off to shelters, be it shelters, facilities that are contracted by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or the beds that are being provided through the Department of Defense.
As I understand it, whether they go to one place versus the other depends on their age, is that right, principally?
Or they're prioritizing. They're prioritizing younger kids to go to the ORR facilities that are established and I think have more services. And then they're sending the older kids, 12 and over, to the Department of Defense facilities because they just require less care than a smaller child.
And when we say Department of Defense facilities, we're talking about military bases?
Correct.
And so the first group of kids, the ones who are put in custody of ORR, Office of Refugee Resettlement, what happens to them?
They get to the ORR shelter and then they get interviewed by a social worker or a youth care worker about where their family is and what they were hoping to do in the United States if they made it. And then contact family members so that they can go ahead and begin a process called family reunification so that the children can be released from federal custody and they don't have to sit in detention.
So if somebody gets to one of these ORR centers and says, I have an aunt in Chicago, they'll contact the aunt and then send the child there?
Yeah, and the case manager will do the paperwork, and kids also get interviewed by clinicians because the kids may have suffered trauma along the way. Young girls who are raped, boys who have seen people die along the journey, and there's trauma that needs to be dealt with. So how that is dealt with is with clinical.
And some of that trauma
counseling.
may have occurred in their country of origin. I mean, what we've
Some
been
of it,
hearing
yeah.
is that the reason for the increase in numbers is the level of violence in Honduras and Guatemala.
Correct, yeah.
And
So-
then the ones who go to the Department of Defense facilities, the military bases, basically the same thing. If they have relatives, the relatives are contacted and then they're sent to them.
Yeah, from what I understand, those services are also provided there.
And then after that, what happens?
Then after that, the child goes to live with that family relative, and they continue to face a deportation process, a removal process. So going back right to the Border Patrol processing stage, they get asked questions about, where they come from and whatnot. And at that moment, the information that the child gives is then used by Border Patrol to type up notices to appear that are then filed with immigration courts. And those notices to appear essentially are charging documents so that the children can be put into a removal or deportation process.
So it's not like they get a free pass to
No.
stay in the United States. They are put into proceedings that it may take a while, but they do have appearance dates and so forth.
Correct.
And is there any kind of a track record as to how many people actually show up for on their appointed date?
I am not aware of it. I'm not aware of what the likelihood is that the children are going to come to court after they're released. I do know that having a lawyer increases the chances of that child showing up to court. I've read studies done by organizations that say that a child who has an attorney is more likely to come to court because they know where to show up, when to show up, and are not getting something in the mail that says you're supposed to go to court, and that kid doesn't understand that it's a notice of hearing or even understand English to read it.
And that's where organizations like yours get involved in connection with the removal proceedings. So for example, the kids in Nogales, at least the ones who stay, they would then be potential clients for your organization?
Right. So kids that are sent to the Office of Refugee Resettlement Shelters, we provide basic Know Your Rights presentations to them, and the kids that are not able to reunify with family, then we take on their cases. Some of those cases we succeed in presenting defenses for special immigrant juvenile status for kids that have a past of abuse, abandonment, or neglect. And some of those kids that are not able to stay in the United States through a defense in immigration court, then we go to immigration court and we ask for voluntary departure or removal so they can be repatriated to their home country.
Physically, where would those kids be housed?
In
The ones who aren't reunited with their families
in shelters operated by the Office of Refugee Resettlement.
And have you or anybody in your organization actually physically inspected the processing center we've been talking about in Nogales?
No.
We've heard people, though, express some concerns about the conditions, in part just because of the numbers of kids there. Do you know if anybody's looking into that to make sure that they're being treated humanely?
And I know that the American Immigration Lawyers Association has been in contact with CBP to go tour the facility, but I don't know if they've been able to get into the facility.
What is the biggest myth or misconception that you think people have about what's been going on and about this whole process?
The biggest misconception is that folks think that once children are processed and then they are released to family members, that somehow the kids are given a permission or a lawful permit to stay in the United States, and that is not the case. Being processed and then being allowed to go live with a family member is just a means for the federal government saying, we're not going to keep you in our custody, we're going to release you so that you can be a child going through the deportations proceedings in the least restrictive setting, and quite frankly also to save the government resources, I believe, because it takes resources to house those kids, I think. And people thinking that the kids somehow are given a permission or an immigration benefit to stay in the United States is the biggest misconception in the whole process, I think.
Well, we've done what we can to deal with some of these misconceptions. You've been very helpful this evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Horizonte.
Thank you.
Puerto Rican musician Chili Willie Groove adds an eclectic flavor to the local music scene with his funky and groovy jazz beats with salsa notes. As a child, he was always interested in music and had played with different salsa, smooth jazz, and funk bands in Sounds of Cultura, SOC. AZPM producer Luis Carrion talks with the musician as he performs an eclectic mix of Latin rhythms and soul from his CD, Only the Beginning, in Southern Arizona.
Your heartbeat beats to a rhythm. You walk to a rhythm. Everything we do is to a rhythm and to a beat. My real name is William Portela Sr. I go by the talented name of Chili Willie Groove. I'm a Latin percussionist, songwriter. I was the one that started the smooth jazz and the Latin jazz here on Sundays at Monterey Court. We had a 6 or 7 month run. We're back now tonight for a reunion concert. Originally from Santurce, Puerto Rico. Boricua's in the house right now. So I came down from Puerto Rico to the Bronx, New York. My father is a Latin percussionist. When I was in my mother's womb, he would play congas to my mother's womb. While I was in her womb, I would jump up and down from the excitement of the rhythm vibrating through her stomach and so forth. So my mother told me I used to jump up and down and so forth while he played a guaguancó, a mambo, a son montuno, a merengue, a plena seis con ocho, whatever. As a percussionist, our job is to color the music. Just like a painter has different paintings and different colors, and he got an airbrush and different airbrushes and or brushes to paint what he paints. My job as a percussionist is to paint the picture, but I don't use paintbrushes. I use sound, you see. So a little triangle here on top of that. And then I'll add a guaguancó because I feel a guaguancó if it calls for. So the drummer is tum ta tum tum ta, and the conga plays ta tum tum ta tum tum ta tum tum ta tum ta. So now he's locking into the groove. Now he's building on top of that. And then you got the bongocero who will put martillo on top of that. So you got the tum ta with the drum, tum ta. Then you got the conga player, tum ta. Now you got the bongo player doing this, tum ta, ta 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 pa 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 ta pa 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 ta pa pa ta. It's music talk. We're having nothing but a conversation, musically. When it becomes personal, then it becomes part of who you are and what you are. And when people start smiling and reflecting, and you're watching them tapping their toes, and you hear them clap, and you hear them shaking, and you hear them rocking their head, it's only because the music is touching them in a way that, wow, they're receiving what we're putting out. And when they can receive what we put out, and they start smiling, for me, that's worth $1 million. You can't replace that.
This month marked the second anniversary of DACA, Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals. This is a program President Obama created for young immigrants who come to the United States illegally when they were children. With me to talk about what has happened with the program is Mitzi Castro, field organizer for the No Dream Deferred campaign, and Delia Salvatierra, an attorney with the Salvatierra Law Group. She is also the immediate past chair for the immigration section for the State Bar of Arizona and a board member for Los Abogados. Thank you both for joining us on Horizonte. Delia, you were on here, you've been on the show several times, but we talked about DACA when it first came about. Remind everybody what the criteria are to be registered under DACA.
A DACA recipient has to have graduated from high school or obtained a GED or currently enroll in high school or a GED. No significant criminal history, no felonies, have entered the United States prior to their 16th birthday and be able to prove that lawful entry, that entry into the United States. And those are the main three ingredients for a successful DACA application.
And I didn't catch, did you mention age? It's 15, right?
That they entered under the age of 16, and that they've been physically and continuously present without significant departures from the United States since June 15 of 2007.
And is there an age cap?
30 at the time DACA was announced, which was June 15, 2012.
Okay, so Mitzi, your group has been working with the people who are eligible for DACA status. Tell us about the organization, when it started, and what you've been doing.
The organization was actually established with Salvatierra as well as other attorneys, Johnny, and they worked together to come up with this magic formula of intake to verify that applicants do in fact meet the criteria. It's actually been around for 2 years, and the program has been picked up by several organizations like Somos America. Unfortunately, their funding wasn't able to continue, and then Own the Dream came on, and we've been able to help them since. So we've had, I believe, one drive at least every month since June of last year.
And what you're doing is you're going out, you're telling people this is the program, this is how you can register for it, and now you're reminding them that they have to re-register if they were among the original group, because their registration is about to expire. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it was either a week or week and a half ago the DACA renewal information was released, or the application was released, and yes, those that were accepted within the first couple of months, so starting in either October, September, and even some of them in August, or that were accepted, they have anywhere between 150 to 120 days to submit their renewal application. Yes.
So Delia, before we talk about the renewal process, your assessment of how successful the program has been in Arizona?
It's been hugely successful to the extent that it's given Arizona youth an opportunity to work, come out of the shadows. It's given them an opportunity to obtain a Social Security number, seek educational opportunities through Maricopa County Community Colleges. Unfortunately, they can't drive. Because the state of Arizona refuses to issue young adults on DACA with driver's license. But I think it's given them a sense of empowerment, a sense of belonging that they didn't otherwise have before.
Any sense for how many people have actually obtained DACA status in Arizona?
I want to say it's over 500,000. I think USCIS...
In Arizona?
Yes.
500,000 in Arizona?
Yes.
Oh.
Absolutely. I think the highest numbers are in California, Florida, and Arizona.
So nationwide, what would the numbers be?
I think it's nearly 1.5 million, too.
Nationwide?
Nationwide.
But 500,000 of them are in Arizona?
About 400,000 in Arizona.
Eligible, or who've actually obtained DACA status?
Obtained DACA status.
And so many of them now are facing the need to renew.
Yes.
Any concerns about that?
What I'd like to see is that they're not so busy in their own lives, and that they follow through on this administrative process, because they really have 120 to 150 days to apply for DACA so that there is no interruption in their status. And their status is evidenced by a work authorization document. And so if they don't have it, then they'll be laid off, and employers will have to be forced to let them go until they renew their status. I think that's our greatest concern.
The 120 to 150 day period that you're talking about, that's roughly that time period before their 2 years expires.
Correct.
And it relatively simple process?
Relatively. The Obama administration and USCIS has made the process for renewal extremely easy, and straightforward. The initial application process is paper intensive, document intensive, but not the renewal process. It is straightforward. It is $465. The fee has not increased since the initial announcement of DACA.
So the renewal costs the same as the original application?
Yes.
And Mitzi, what is your group doing to help people get out the word that they need to do the renewal?
We're more than anything focusing on social media. We understand that people are glued to their phones 24/7. So we work during the peak hours, not before and the 9 to 5 starts, and during lunch we know people are looking at their phone then. Aside from social media, we do what we did with the initial round of the campaign, which is visiting organizations and other businesses that have been really active in supporting the work of the Arizona Dream Act Coalition. And we've done a lot of media just in general, being on TV and on the radio, and it's really helped. We always we heard you on Radio Campesina, we heard you here, we heard about you here or there, so it's been really successful.
And about how many people do you have coming through your offices to get re-registered, or actually most of the time thus far would have been the initial registration?
Based on the numbers that we have from the last forum, which was last Saturday, we either informed or assisted at least 180 people. So we are hoping to have the same amount of numbers, probably half of that, every Thursday when we have our informational forums.
Now, for a lot of people, $465 is a lot of money, and so has that been a real deterrent to getting people to register?
Yes, it definitely has. We've actually worked on, as a part of our campaign, different ways to help people fundraise for that, whether it be a car wash or the Cundina or the Tanda, which is the money pot. We actually work closely with eMoneyPool, which is an online version of that. And individuals are able to obtain that and eventually build their credit once they have the deferred action. So that's one really cool way for them to obtain the 465.
So Delia, you indicated that some of the benefits of DACA haven't been realized because the kids, or they're not all kids, but the people who get that status and the employment authorization document can't get to work, and so they may not be able to get jobs because they can't drive. Any concern that may discourage people from renewing their DACA status because they figure it hasn't done them that much good?
I think so. But I think that it was a deterrent when DACA was announced, and Governor Brewer immediately announced that it would not authorize driver's licenses to DACA recipients. I think it was a deterrent then, and I think it will be a deterrent now. But I think that those who have DACA must focus on what DACA means, and it means authorized presence by the federal government. And federal law trumps state law with immigration matters. And the opportunity to work and the opportunity to seek an education is paramount to a driver's license.
Now, with the political earthquake that occurred last week, with Eric Cantor being defeated in the primary, a lot of people are saying immigration reform isn't going to happen this year. I mean, there was some doubt as to whether it would anyway, but there was some hope. Do you think that will have any effect one way or the other on people renewing?
No, I think DACA is a very special, unique program authorized under executive power. And I think that folks are not banking on Congress to pass immigration reform in order for them to continue their status. I think the Obama administration and DHS have done an excellent job to keep this program alive. I don't think it will go away. I think it can only be expanded, and I think it'd be foolish by any future administration to take it away. Whether it means that that comprehensive immigration reform is not going to happen, I agree. I don't think it'll happen this year.
So, Mitzi, what about your organization? Have you seen any impact from the debate over whether there's going to be immigration reform or not? Does that affect the number of people you see coming forward to register for DACA?
We've noticed several individuals coming up to us and asking us about this. I think it's more or less the parents. I think, if anything, it's helped us to increase our numbers with the Arizona Dream Act Coalition and the campaign. I think people are becoming more alert and just looking to see what it is that they can do and how they can get involved really to make a difference in passing immigration reform if it were to happen, or just in general being in the know.
So by way of summary, based upon everything you said, DACA pretty much a success.
A great success.
And hopefully people will be renewing and continue to get the benefits.
Timely.
Well, thank you both for joining us on Horizonte to talk about this. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it won't be necessary in another 2 years, but we may be talking about this again.
Let's
Thank
hope.
you so much.
Thank you.
That's our show for tonight. From all of us here at Horizonte and 8, I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good night.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.